The day I found Karen's $80,000 Mercedes blocking the path of my disabled veteran father's medical transport to Agana, I knew one thing for sure, that spotless white SUV was about to vanish for good. The best part? She would practically plead for me to take it. Picture this. My dad's wheelchair-accessible van is honking non-stop. He's on the verge of missing his critical dialysis appointment. And there's Karen, calmly sipping her skinny latte in her kitchen, grinning like our struggle is her morning entertainment. That smug smile, it ended up costing her everything: her car, her house, her so-called dignity. And just wait until you hear how her own husband reacted when he uncovered the truth. What would you do if your Anna president turned your life upside down? Tell me your worst Anna nightmare below. I'm collecting stories for my lawyer. Let me know where you're watching from: Texas, Florida. Because if you've got an Anna, you need to hear about the 3 illegal weapons I used to bring Karen down. After 47 blocked driveways, trust me, cold revenge tastes even better than it sounds. Let me show you exactly how this quiet suburban battlefield came to life. Karen Whitmore Stanton didn't just stumble into our lives by accident. She came in with the precision of a heat-seeking missile set to destroy anything resembling happiness. I'm Marcus Castellano, 45 years old, construction contractor, and unlucky enough to inherit my grandmother's house in Pine Valley Estates. Now, Grandma Rosa, she was a legend. Back in 1992, she fought the creation of Anna with the fury of 1,000 Italian grandmothers, calling it legalized extortion run by suburban tyrants. God, I miss her. 3 months ago, I moved in with my wife Deborah, 8 months pregnant and still teaching 4th grade like a warrior, and my father, Anthony, a Vietnam vet, wheelchair-bound ever since an old construction injury reactivated embedded shrapnel. This man helped build half of Phoenix with nothing but his hands and grit, and now he just needed a ramp to visit his grandkids. Enter Karen Whitmore Stantona, the human form of an Anna violation notice, technically within the rules, but ethically bankrupt. It was our 3rd day in the neighborhood. Diesel fumes from the moving truck still clung to everything. And here comes Karen, a 5-foot storm of suburban arrogance clicking across my driveway in $800 heels, trailing enough perfume to trigger a chemical weapons warning. That structure needs architectural approval, she announced, pointing at the temporary wheelchair ramp with her French manicured finger like it was a crime scene. Even her iPad case matched her coral cardigan, her Mercedes matched Bota, and so did her icy, overpriced soul. My dad needs that tramp, I said, trying to stay calm, while she tapped away on her screen like she was launching a drone strike. The committee meets in 6 to 8 weeks, she smiled. The kind of smile that'd make sharks rethink their life choices. I'm sure he can manage until then. That night, my father tried the stairs. His arms gave out. He nearly cracked his skull. The next morning, I rebuilt that ramp at full volume, every power tool in my arsenal screaming. By dawn, 15 minutes later, I found a $500 fine taped to my door. The paper still warm from her printer and reeking of entitlement. But here's what I didn't know yet about Karina. She wasn't just a bored housewife playing dictator. She was a real estate agent, and she had turned Anna into her personal client generator. That gleaming white Mercedes with a Rules For You vanity plate, it doubled as a billboard for her control. She lived in the giant mansion across the street, a 6,000 square foot shrine to tackiness. And from her balcony, she had the perfect vantage point to monitor every single supposed code violation. Her husband, Richard Stanton, owner of Stanton Construction, my biggest competitor. I wouldn't figure that out until after she'd already cost me $40,000 in lost business. Karen had her routine down to a science. 8 years of running Anna like a suburban police state. She applied just enough pressure to ruin you without leaving any fingerprints. Selective rule enforcement, aggressive documentation, maybe even a little federal mail tampering, all while hiding behind meeting minutes and her wine-soaked puppet board who voted however she told Thema because she controlled their property values like a puppeteer in pearls. What Karen didn't realize, she had just picked a fight with the grandson of Rosa Castellano, a woman who once got a city councilman kicked out for trying to ban her tomato garden. I didn't just inherit her house, I inherited her Sicilian fire, her file cabinet of neighborhood secrets, and her zero-tolerance policy for bullies, especially ones in coral sweaters and expensive perfume. Game on, Karen. You just didn't know you'd already lost. 2 weeks later, Karen fired her next shota with a smile sweet enough to kill. I was loading my F-250 at the crack of dawn when she appeared out of nowhere, like some suburban demon wrapped in beige polyester. iPad in hand, smile loaded. "Marcus," she purred, syrupy sweet, "we need to talk about your commercial vehicle." The way she said commercial made it sound like I was parking a toxic waste truck. Turns out, while I'd been out pouring concrete across town, Anna had called an emergency meeting, and surprising now all work vehicles had to be completely hidden from the street within 30 days. Violations would cost me $100 a day. My truck, the one that fed my family and paid our mortgage, was suddenly labeled a public threat. "I'm sure you can make space in your garage," she offered, knowing full well that the garage was filled with my dad's medical gear and the van. Her perfume was so thick I could taste Tida white diamonds mixed with venom. That night, I was pacing the kitchen like a wild animal while Deborah channeled her stress into lasagna for an army. My dad watched quietly, then spoke. "They're not just plain dirty," he said, eyes sharp with military instinct. "She's targeting you." His words hit hard. This wasn't just harassment, it was calculated. The next morning proved him right. 3 trucks from Stanton Construction showed up, parked boldly right outside our house. Our street was cluttered with commercial trucks, their logos practically shouting from the side, yet not a single fine from Anna. And who did they belong to? Richard Stantona, Karen's husband, the same man who kept mysteriously winning every city contract I'd bid on recently. The puzzle pieces snapped together like a magazine being loaded. Karen was weaponizing Anna rules to eliminate his competition to me. I spent the next week building an ironclad case, time-stamped photos, GPS coordinates, even caught Richard on camera, parked illegally in the fire lane, directing his crew. The hypocrisy was hotter than blacktop in summer. The upcoming Anna meeting, that was my battleground. I walked into the stale, beige community center reeking of burnt coffee and frustration, armed with a phone full of evidence. Sia and Rosa Castellano's stubbornness running in my veins. Karen sat at the head table like a monarch, flanked by her loyal wine club cronies on the board, all pretending they didn't wish they were anywhere else. "I'd like to address the selective enforcement of vehicle policies," I declared as I commandeered the projector. Gasps rippled through the room as the screen filled with crystal-clear images. Stanton trucks violating every code Karen had cited against me. Dates, times, visual proof that screamed betrayal. Karen's face went through a slideshow of fury. Her composure cracked like cheap foundation. "Those are temporary work vehicles," she snapped, her pitch climbing. "Your eyesore is permanent." The board still voted 4-1 to uphold the fineza, but their eyes said what their mouths couldn't. They knew it was a farce. They were just too terrified of Karen's reign to speak up. But that wasn't my real ace. The game changer came in the parking lot. Ethel Morrisota, 82 pounds of pure resistance dressed in a grandma disguise, slipped me a manila envelope like a spy passing classified intel. "Your grandmother was my best friend," she whispered, lavender perfume covering the scent of rebellion. "She knew this day would come." Article 15. "Sweetie, read it tonight." Her crooked fingers gave mine a firm squeeze. Rosa always said, "The best defense is better paperwork than your enemies." Inside the envelope, legal brilliance. A grandfather clause protecting all pre-existing property uses from future Anna restrictions. Our land had hosted Rosa's landscaping business since 1973. That meant the property was legally mixed-use commercial. Translation: my work truck was fully protected. Karen's fines? Worthless. Legal tip: always check your property's historical use and founding documents. One overlooked clause can save you thousands. Pre-existing rights override shiny new rules. I printed out Article 15 and taped it to my truck window, surrounded by photos of Grandma Rosa running her buzziness, including one where she was flipping off the camera with glorious Italian sass. The next morning, Karen's white Mercedes crept past my driveway. I saw her face twist behind the tinted glass, her lips moving in silent rage. She'd just lost round 1, but the way she gripped her steering wheel told me all I needed to know. Karen wasn't giving up. She was just getting started. Wounded Karens don't retreat, they reload. Soon, my driveway became her new battleground. She kicked off her next attack early one Monday morning. Her $80,000 roadblock of a car parked diagonally across my driveway while she visited the neighbor whose house was darker than her soul. That same morning, I was supposed to meet the Johnsons to close a $40,000 bathroom renovation, a project that would cover my dad's medical expenses. I stood there waiting while the police slowly made their way over, just in time for Karen to reappear with award-worthy dramatics. "Oh, Marcus, I didn't know you had to leave," she gasped. Margaret had a plumbing emergency. Margaret had been in Florida for 3 weeks. I knew that because I had been collecting her mail. Unlike Karen, I didn't open it for fun. I lost the job. Stanton Construction got it. Not shocking. But she wasn't done. Tuesday, she blocked my concrete delivery. That little stunt cost me $500 in restocking fees. Wednesday, she trapped my dad's medical transport for over half an hour while she pretended to be on urgent Anna business. Thursday nearly broke me. Deborah, now 9 months pregnant, got stuck behind Karen's Mercedes while battling contractions. Turned out it was false labor, brought on by sheer stress and fury. Karen moved her car just seconds before she could be legally towed. That's when I noticed her phone screen glowing in the console. A police scanner app right between Pinterest and wine. Oh moms. The woman had turned neighborhood tech into a full-blown weapon. But Friday changed the game again. My dad held up a wrinkled, oddly sealed water bill like it was a classified dossier. His military-trained eyes narrowed. "Someone's reading our mail," he muttered. "The seal's been steamed and glued again." Back in Nam, we'd have shot someone for spy work this sloppy. And just like that it all clicked. Karen wasn't just messing with our schedule. She knew our schedule. Karen was stealing our mail. I'd read about this kind of thing in Anna-Drama-nest horror stories on Linnea, but now it wasn't just someone else's nightmare. It was happening to us. And while tampering with mail is a federal crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison, a dad's forensic hunch wasn't enough to prove it. By the weekend, I'd become a full-blown suburban spy. Amazon delivered a GPS tracker tough enough to survive the apocalypse. I also installed a hidden camera disguised as a landscape light. Ironically, Anna proved it angled perfectly at our mailbox. The bait? A fake medical appointment letter from Johnson Medical Group, strategically placed in the mailbox. A juicy piece of cheese for one very entitled rat. The footage I captured was a masterpiece. Karen, dressed in a $300 yoga set, casually strolled up at dawn. She snapped photos of our mail like a nosy paparazzo, then slipped the decoy letter right into her designer bag. That was it. Game on. I remembered my cousin Tony saying federal prosecutors love mail theft 'cause mandatory sentences, open and shut wins. And suddenly, I was in the holiday spirit. The next day, Karen's white Mercedes appeared once again, neatly angled across my driveway like a designer barricade. I let her stew there a while, marinating in her arrogance, before walking up, phone already recording. "I need to leave for my appointment," I said, polite but firm. She smiled with venom. "What appointment?" I held up a duplicate envelope. "The one from Johnson Medical Group is the exact letter that vanished from my mailbox yesterday. You know, the one currently sitting on your passenger seat next to your Starbucks cups and a stack of ANA violation forms." Watching her confidence collapse was more satisfying than a heavyweight title match. While she scrambled for a defense, I crouched beside her car and gently attached a note to her bumper. Well, what looked like a note, in reality, I was clicking the GPS tracker into place, and it locked in with a sound that felt like loading a shotgun. "Drive safe, Karen," I said. Expired tags can be costly. Her registration had been out for 6 months. I'd noticed while she was too busy committing federal crimes. She tore off down the road, leaving behind a streak of rubber and the unmistakable scent of burning privilege. That tracker became my personal surveillance window into her dirty world. Within a week, I'd logged her car parked in fire lanes, handicapped spots, even the DMV. A little digging into public records uncovered the real Jama. Karen's license had been suspended over a DUI the year before. Let that sink in. The woman handing out ANA violations like candy was illegally driving all over town. It was like discovering a food inspector with salmonella. A contractor friend once warned me that people who scream the loudest about rules are always the biggest violators. He was right. During one of her park and block incidents, while she was harassing the pedals about their rose bushes, I glanced inside her car. The glove box was overflowing with unpaid tickets, court notices, and final demands. Designer purses hid empty wine bottles, and the whole interior smelled like Pinot Grigio and bad judgment. This wasn't just hypocrisy, it was leverage. Every ticket she'd issued, every ANA fine she'd written while driving without a valid license, could be legally challenged. And potentially, every single action she took under her role in ANA could now be used in a lawsuit. I had been playing defense against a person who shouldn't have even been allowed on the field. The game was changing and Karen didn't realize it yet. She thought she was battling a contractor with a truck. In truth, she'd just declared war on someone who had discovered her entire empire was built on legal quicksand. And I was getting ready to drop the first stone. Her next attack came disguised as government concern. A white van from Adult Protective Services pulled into our driveway. A weary-looking caseworker stepped out, clipboard in hand, explaining that they'd received an anonymous tip about a disabled veteran being neglected in dangerous conditions. Anonymous, sure, but the stench of Karen's perfume floated from across the street, where she pretended to water already dead petunias. Eyes locked on our front door. Dad handled it like a soldier. He stayed calm until they asked about his medication routine. Then, something inside him cracked. "My boy takes better care of me than the VA ever did," he said, his voice shaking, and not from age, but from rage. "I didn't survive the Tet offensive to be treated like some helpless child," he added, jaw clenched, while the caseworker snapped photos of his room like she was building a criminal case. That night, Dad's PTSD returned. I heard him calling for his squad at 3 a.m. Stuck in a jungle of memories, triggered not by war, but by Karen's cruelty. 2 days later, my wife called me from school sobbing. Deborah could barely speak. "Marcus. They reported me to Child Protective Services." The words barely made sense. "They pulled me out of my classroom, in front of my students. Said someone claimed I was recklessly endangering the baby, that I was speeding, driving unsafely." "Marcus, I've never even had a parking ticket." Turns out, Karen had followed her to work and photographed her going 28 in a 25 zone. The stress sent Deborah's blood pressure into the danger zone. Her doctor ordered immediate bed rest. That night, false labor struck Agana and I spent hours in the wondering if Karen's twisted obsession would cost us everything. Then came Karen's biggest mistake. She got sloppy. Hospital security pulled me aside later that night. They'd reviewed footage from the parking garage and there she was, Karen's white Mercedes trailing my wife's car, circling the lot like a shark in designer heels. The head of security, a retired Marine, shook his head. I bonded with Dad during one of our regular visits, and he handed me a DVD copy. "You might want to consider a restraining order," he suggested. This looks like harassment to me, but I had something far more strategic in mind. It was time to do some serious digging. I had connections to contractors, builders, repairmen. We don't just fix houses, we hear everything. A few well-placed calls revealed Karen's trail of destruction. 5 different homes in a decade, each departure following some chaotic neighborhood drama. Tommy, from Elite Plumbing, remembered her from Scottsdale. She had the ANA president arrested for embezzlement, took over the board, and a year later vanished with $40,000 missing from the ANA account. Mike, an electrician, had an even darker story. In Willow Creek, she reported 6 families to CPS. Later, it was uncovered that her reports were bogus. She fled before legal action could catch up. The pattern was undeniably Karen was a habitual chaos agent. But the biggest revelation came during my usual grocery store intel session with Ethel. As we stood by the bananas, she leaned in and whispered, "Did you know our Karen owes Anna $47,000? She calls it a presidential exemption," Ethel said, rolling her eyes. "Hasn't paid dues in 8 years but fines everyone else for being late." Her nephew, who worked at a title office, had access to records. Karen's house had 3 liens on it and a foreclosure notice was pending. The same woman who lectured us about community values was swimming in debt and treating Anna funds like her private stash. That evening, our kitchen transformed into a command center, fueled by moral outrage. Dad reached out through the VA and found other families she'd harassed. Deborah, even from her bedrest setup, launched a Facebook group of victims of Karen. It had 50 members in under 2 hours. It became both support group and intel unit. The Patel family shared how she had reported their Diwali decorations as gang symbols. The Johnsons said she called the health department on their child's lemonade stand. A quiet Korean family uploaded footage of Karen yelling about the smell of their cooking. Every post told the same story. A power-hungry bigot using her position to terrorize anyone who didn't fit her mold. Later that week, the CPS investigator returned. I was ready. His name was Jim Martinez, a Vietnam vet with a hardened expression that had seen too much systemic cruelty. When he saw Dad's medals and heard about the Adult Protective Service's complaints, something shifted in his expression. I've seen this before, he said, his voice low. Serial accusers are always going after military families, minorities, anyone they think won't fight back. It's predatory. He handed me his card. On the back, he'd written his personal number. When you bring her down and you will call me, I'll testify about the false reports. People like her hurt real victims and make our job harder. At the door, he paused and added, your dad reminds me of my old sergeant. Protect him, and get her. We had the puzzle pieces, all we needed was the right moment to set them falling. Financial fraud, mail tampering, false accusations, harassment, civil rights violations. Karen had built herself a criminal empire under the illusion of Anna power. She thought she was invincible, but she didn't know about our alliance. She had no clue we were gathering evidence, and she definitely didn't suspect we had our eyes on her prized annual Anna Gala just 3 weeks away. That same gala where she paraded herself in front of real estate clients, playing queen in her knockoff luxury bags, basking in borrowed glory. Thanks to Ethel, we had 3 tickets. I also had some friends in the Avenue installation business. Karen craved attention. We were about to give her more than she ever bargained for. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a restless Thursday night while I scoured Anna documents like a man on a mission. Buried deep in subsection 47C of our insurance policy, a dense legal jargon designed to numb the red. I found it. A golden loophole. My hands trembled as I read it over and over to make sure I wasn't imagining it. According to Anna's automotive insurance policy, any vehicle on Anna's shared property could be towed if it blocked emergency routes, was unregistered or uninsured, created a safety hazard. And here was the kicker: Karen's driveway wasn't actually hers. A survey mistake in 2003 placed her driveway 6 feet into shared community property. For 15 years, her Mercedes had been parked illegally while she fined others for phantom violations. I called Rodrigo at Sunrise, my best friend since school and owner of the top towing business in the county. Rodriguez, recovery. You awake, Hermano? I asked. For you, always. What's the mission? The white Mercedes, I explained. He burst out laughing. The one whose owner called my truck an eyesore at the city council meeting? This is fate, bro. 100% by the book. Clean as Sunday Mass. It was perfect. State law allowed immediate impoundment of vehicles with suspended registration on public land. And Anna bylaws drafted by Karen herself in her Power Matter clearly stated that the board president must enforce every rule equally. No exceptions. She had essentially built a legal trap and stepped into it herself every single day. With her suspended license, expired registration, and a legally parked Mercedes, she was practically a jackpot for any towing company. But the situation ran deeper than that. Due to a surveying error, it turned out Karen had been issuing fines on behalf of Anna Dromanest, all while blatantly violating Anna's own rules more than anyone else. Every violation notice she handed out while illegally parked was possibly invalid. Every board meeting she led under the guise of authority was a potential lawsuit waiting to happen. I felt like an archaeologist who had just uncovered a tomb filled with legal treasure. Over morning coffee, I explained everything to Dad. His strategic mind kicked in instantly. It's like she planted a minefield and forgot where the mines were, he remarked. Pride always comes before the fall in war and in Anna's alike. Deborah, still recovering in bed but mentally razor sharp, chimed in with a critical observation at the gala. "She'll definitely park there, probably in a fire lane to make her grand entrance," she said. "The more people watching, the more humiliating it'll be." The annual Anna Gala was Karen's personal stage where she flaunted her status for real estate clients and reinforced her grip on the neighborhood's power structure. Around 300 people would attend, including local news covering the event. I spent the next week assembling every legal document with surgical precision, every form Rodrigo needed, every statute that justified our actions, every piece of supporting evidence I organized, copied, and ready. The law was crystal clear. We didn't just have permission to tow her car, we were legally obligated to act once the violations came to light. As members of ANA who were aware of illegal conduct on shared property, turning a blind eye would have made us complicit. And the real kicker? Karen's own rules demanded she face the consequences. The final puzzle piece fell into place when I found subsection 47C, paragraph 9. It stated that if a vehicle was towed from shared property, the ANA board president would be held personally liable for all related expenses, towing fees, storage, legal costs if they were aware of the violation. Karen couldn't deny knowing where she parked. That meant she'd have to foot the entire bill herself. And with Rodrigo's premium rates at $500 hook fee, $200 daily storage, and admin charges, her Mercedes would rack up expenses that made a mortgage seem like pocket change. Rodrigo and I met at his lot to finalize the plan. Surrounded by the symphony of idling tow trucks and the scent of diesel-scented justice, he placed a hand on his truck and said, "We do this by the book. Cameras on, paperwork perfect." When she threatens a lawsuit, I want to hand her the rule book she wrote. We practiced every detail of the approach, the fastest hookup technique, the safest legal route out. This wasn't revenge. This was enforcement. That it would happen at her own gala, in front of her victims and under the spotlight of news cameras, that was poetic justice. Our movement began in my garage at Temple of Motor Oil and Righteous Fury. Within a week, it had transformed into the unofficial base of the anti-Karen resistance. Whiteboards, laptops, and enough coffee to keep a small country awake lined the space. Support spread like mold in the landlord's forgotten basement. 12 households were officially on board, and more joined each day as word spread across the neighborhood. Ethel Morrison became our undercover asset, playing the sweet old lady. She slipped under Karen's radar with homemade zucchini bread and a warm smile. "She trusts me because I bake for her," she grinned. Little does she know I've been recording all her complaints about difficult neighbors. Then there was Joel Patel, a forensic accountant by day, and an Anna victim by night. He'd spent 3 weeks combing through the finances like a man who'd once been fined $500 for choosing the wrong shade of beige for his mailbox. The Johnsons, tech wizards whom Karen once harassed over solar panels, built our digital archive. They stored every piece of evidence on a secure server they hilariously named Karen Leaks. But our real game changer was Mike Brennan, our longtime mailman. For 15 years, he'd watched Karen act like a raccoon rifling through mailboxes. "Postal inspectors have been waiting for something like this," he told me over a beer in the garage. "Mail theft by an ANA official? That's Christmas morning." Those people had no idea I'd been compiling a detailed record of every complaint, snapping photos of altered boxes. Your girl was now staring down the barrel of federal charges. The reports were already in, just waiting on our signal to trigger the next phase. My attorney, Gary Chia, who once offered a free consultation after Karen went after him for his culturally offensive koi pond, mapped out our legal strategy like a seasoned war general. First step, we hit them with an ANA records request, forcing them to hand over everything. Then we bombarded them with a survey dispute, a demand for a financial audit, and a compilation of fabricated reports sent to authorities. It was a slow, relentless takedown, all completely lawful. Gary had already written up 17 different motions, each one targeting Karen's empire like a guided missile. And the best part, according to ANA bylaws, they were responsible for all legal fees tied to any member request that exposed board misconduct. The logistics became our nightly obsession. We installed hidden cameras in key locations, all on private land, All 100% legal, creating a surveillance system that could rival a casino's security. The Johnsons wrote a program that synced footage to precise timestamps, building an undeniable timeline of Karen's movements. Rodrigo added GPS trackers to the tow trucks, mapping out their journey from the gala to the impound lot. If she says we damaged her car or stole anything, we've got video from 16 angles proving otherwise, Rodrigo said as he installed his 7th dash cam. My dad transformed the whole operation into a military mission. We had code names, synchronized watches, and a team of 5 veterans from the VA Central with stories of Karen's harassment. He named it Operation Tow Freedom, sketching detailed action plans like he was back in tactical ops. His idea? Genius. A phone tree that could rally 40 witnesses in under 10 minutes. When that Mercedes gets hooked up, I want phones rolling, multiple angles, undeniable proof. Deborah, confined to bed rest, took over as our intel analyst. Look at this trend, she said, her laptop perched on her baby bump. She showed us charts that looked like they belonged in an FBI war room. Karen's violations spike around the 1st and 15th paydays. She's using fines to pad her income. She'd found 23 households slapped with suspicious fines right before Karen's mortgage was due. It was extortion, disguised as community enforcement. Her natural instinct for order helped build a database that would make prosecutors weep tears of joy. The printer in my garage ran so hot it could have doubled as a heater, churning out packet after packet of evidence. Financial discrepancies revealing $186,000 in miscellaneous expenses that matched Karen's credit card transactions. Time-stamped photos of her luxury car illegally parked in handicapped spaces across a dozen locations. Transcripts of her Anna meetings where she openly admitted to targeting certain groups in the neighborhood. Each folder was a prosecutor's dream, clean, organized, and wrapped in clear plastic covers. 3 nights before the gala, we gathered for our final war council. 43 people packed into my garage, sharing stories that would make your skin crawl if you had even a shred of decency. The Korean family she accused of holding suspicious gatherings of family dinners. The black veteran she called the police and offer checking his own mailbox. The elderly Jewish couple fined over a mezuzah placed on their door without an approval. Each tale added fuel to the fire. This wasn't about my family anymore. It was about every neighbor who'd ever been crushed by a clipboard tyrant. Remember, I told the group, everything we do is lawful, documented, and just. We're not vigilantes. We're citizens using our own bylaws because our president refuses to. When the tow truck shows up, stay calm, stay legal, stay peaceful. Let Karen be the one to snap it, and she will. The air felt electric, like the pause before a thunderstorm. Everyone knew their role, their timing, their mark. We had weaponized her favorite tools: structure, paperwork, and relentless precision. The gala was in 3 days. The trap was set to the 2nd. Karen thought it would be her moment of glory. Instead, she'd headline her own downfall, produced by those she tormented, staged under the very laws she championed, and witnessed by everyone who mattered. Rodrigo had cleared his calendar. His top driver was on call. The tow truck gleamed like a symbol of poetic justice. We were ready. She just didn't know it yet. But Karen must have felt something in the air like animals sense an earthquake, because 3 days before the gala, she fired back with a last-ditch move that would have made General Patton proud. It began when I found my truck sitting on cinder blocks, every tire slashed with surgical accuracy. Security footage caught a shadowy figure around 3A.M.A. But 3 of my 4 cameras were mysteriously spray-painted just moments earlier. The 4th, hidden inside a birdhouse Deborah built in summer camp 2 decades ago. It caught everything in crystal clear HD, including the unmistakable shot of Karen's French manicured hand gripping the knife. She's getting desperate, Dad said, inspecting the crime scene like a trained investigator. Seen this before. Cornered rats always bite. Replacing the tires cost over $1,000, but the insurance report? That was going to be interesting. How do you explain your Anna president is committing felony-level vandalism? Then the phone rang. My biggest client, Marcus. I'm sorry, he said. We're going with another contractor. Someone sent us troubling info about how you do business. The troubling info? An anonymous blog. A broken bar. The expose copyright on Castellano construction was loaded with edited images that falsely implied violations and safety risks that didn't exist. The blog had been published using the Anadrama Nest's own web server, something Karen conveniently overlooked while launching her defamatory campaign online. The Johnsons traced the IP activity directly to Anna board meetings, pinpointing the time Karen was physically present. She had actually used Anna's own resources to defame me during official sessions, stacking wire fraud onto her already extensive list of crimes. But the real blow came when 5 separate clients pulled out within 48 hours. Contracts worth over $200,000 were canceled. Karen wasn't just trying to humiliate me, she wanted to financially ruin me before the gala. Rodrigo called me late Wednesday, voice tight with fury. Someone offered me $5 grand to ignore all tow requests from Pine Valley Estates this weekend, he said. Cash, no trail, very professional. He'd recorded the entire exchange, including the part where the caller threatened consequences if he didn't comply. The twist? The call had come from Anna's office line. Caller ID confirmed it. With that, we added bribery and witness tampering to Karen's growing rap sheet, and now reading like a criminal law syllabus. Thursday hit even harder. Deborah called me from the elementary school, sobbing. Marcus, someone called CPS again, she said. Our kids had been pulled out of class and questioned about our home life via whether we ever hurt them, if they felt safe, whether there were drugs in our house. Our children were traumatized. Though the investigator was kind, they had to act on the detailed accusations listed in the report. I raced to the school to find my 8-year-old son in tears, asking why the lady thought his dad hurt his mom. My 6-year-old daughter kept whispering that we were good parents and promised to be nice. Something snapped inside me then, not a fiery outburst, but a cold resolve, the kind that crushes pressure into diamonds. I dialed Jim Martinez, the CPS investigator who'd once given me his card. It's starting again, I told him. Same person? He asked, tone sharpening. Same pattern, same timing. Right before a big Anna event, right before we reveal financial corruption. He paused. File a police report now. I'll submit my statement about the pattern. This is witness intimidation, misusing state agencies. The DA takes that seriously. Karen had officially crossed from harassment into criminal territory. Even the detective who handled our case was a former Anna victim. He raised an eyebrow at our evidence pile. Let me guess, he said. The president treats the whole neighborhood like her own kingdom? Selective enforcement, targeting dissenters? He shared that his own Anna had once sued him for having the wrong type of grass. He meticulously documented everything, especially the digital forensics. Blog posts made during official Anna meetings using their internal servers. That wasn't just unethical, it was wire fraud and embezzlement of services. And wire fraud? That's a federal prosecutor's favorite playground. But Karen's final move came Friday morning, just one day before the gala. I was reviewing last-minute preparations when Ethel called, breathless. Emergency board meeting in an hour, she said. Karen's pushing through new bylaws. She wants to ban all recording devices from Anna events, prevent residents from calling tow trucks without board approval, and make it illegal to gather in groups larger than 4 on Anna property. She wasn't trying to manage the neighborhood, she was trying to erase every tactic we had to hold her accountable. The meeting was absolute chaos. Karen sat at the head like a dictator on the verge of losing her thernia, makeup smudged, voice too sharp, desperation oozing from every word. These measures are essential to shield the community from organized harassment, she read nervously from her notes. The 4 board members shifted awkwardly in their chairs as over 40 residents packed the tiny room. When she demanded a vote with no discussion, breaking Robert's rules of order, Dr. Patel stood. Point of order, Madam President. The bylaws mandate a 30-day notice before any voting measure. Page 47, Section 3. Karen's face turned every shade between rage and panic. I'm invoking emergency powers, she snapped, for community safety. What emergency? Ethel asked with feigned innocence. The gala? That's been scheduled for months. Only Karen stood alone, backing her own failed coup with a vote of 401. Even her usual wine club allies could sense the desperation dripping from her every word. As the meeting spiraled into shouting and confusion, She delivered one final threat: anyone who disrupts tomorrow's gala will be charged with trespassing. But Gary Chen, our ever-composed lawyer, responded smoothly, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. Actually, Karen, the gala is a public ANA event, held on shared community grounds. Every dues-paying member has a right to attend and record. That's in the bylaws. Page 15, Section 8. You wrote them yourself. She stormed out of the meeting like her shoes were on fire, but just before she left, I caught a glimpse in her eyes, a raw panic. She knew we were planning something, but had no idea what. That uncertainty was staring her up inside. That night, our group chat came alive. Everyone checked in, cameras fully charged, roles confirmed, witnesses in place. The news station covering the ANA Gala had been tipped about possible drama. Rodrigo's truck was freshly polished and parked nearby, ready for deployment. Saturday's showdown was set. For weeks, Karen had been blindly swinging in the dark. Now, we were about to flip on the lights. The next morning, Karen made her final and most vicious move. A full-blown character assassination that could have been lifted straight from a dictator's playbook. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a panicked text from my brother in New Jersey. Why is there a blog saying you're under investigation for elder abuse? Overnight, an anonymous site called Pine Valley Truth had exploded across social media. It featured pictures of my dad looking frail, twisted captions implying neglect, and fake testimonials from concerned neighbors accusing me of keeping him in unsafe conditions. Worst of all, a doctored image showing my dad collapsed on the floor, edited from a real photo of him doing physical therapy. But Karen's rage had made her sloppy. She included specific details about Dad's prescriptions as the kind of private medical info only someone who'd illegally opened his mail would know. In trying to falsely accuse me of a state crime, she had unknowingly posted proof of her own federal crimes. My phone rang nonstop as the lie spread. Clients, friends, and family reached out in panic. Deborah's blood pressure spiked dangerously. Her doctor threatened to admit her. She's trying to make me go into labor before the gala, Deborah gasped between contractions. She knows we won't leave if I'm hospitalized. By midday, things went from awful to surreal. The doorbell rang. Two police officers stood outside for a welfare check on my dad. Across the street, Karen's Mercedes sat parked ominously. I could see her shadow through the tinted glass, watching like a predator waiting for her prey. We got reports of shouting and possible violence, said the younger officer, one hand near his holster. But then, Dad wheeled up to the door like a seasoned soldier. Officers, I'm Anthony Castellano, retired staff sergeant, Purple Heart recipient. The only violence here is against the truth. And then, Karma arrived, smiling. The older cop squinted, then broke into a huge grin. Tony Castellano, you saved my uncle's life back in '71. Jimmy Morrison, 25th Infantry. The two men embraced like family as Karen watched her malicious report collapse into a heartfelt reunion. Officer Morrison took out his notebook and made extensive notes about the false report. He muttered something about how these fake calls waste real resources. This kind of crap costs lives, he said. When you find out who's doing this, call me. My partner missed a real domestic call because of something like this. Then came a knock I never expected. Richard Stanton, Karen's husband, stood on my porch, pale and trembling, as if he just learned he was married to a monster. I'm done protecting her, he said, holding out a thumb drive. She's ruined our finances, our reputation, our marriage. Everything is on this. The drive contained damning evidence. Stolen ANA funds, faked invoices, private investigator files on neighbors, secret recordings of her plotting false CPS reports. Richard's voice shook. She told me it was just about keeping property values up. I didn't know she was evil. That thumb drive was a prosecutor's gold mine. It had screenshots of ANA bank accounts showing transfers to Karen's personal accounts, emails planning harassment campaigns, and a spreadsheet targeting neighbors based on race, religion, and military service. It included notes like, Mexicans lower property value, too many Asians on Oak Street. She had cataloged her hate crimes with the precision of a war criminal. But the worst of all was an audio file. Karen, drunk at a wine club gathering, proudly declaring how she was cleansing Pine Valley and getting rid of the undesirables. That afternoon, Dr. Patel called an emergency meeting at 4 p.m. 47 homeowners crammed into my garage, which now pulsed with righteous anger. "I've completed the forensic audit," he announced. Then he projected a spreadsheet on the wall and the numbers made people gasp. Karen Whitmore Stanton had stolen $247,000 over 8 years, but here's the best part. She had been lazy. Every single transaction was traceable, documented, and undeniable. She used Nano credit cards for personal shopping, then filed fake expense reports. Wire fraud, tax fraud, embezzlement, all federal offenses, all with prison time. The garage erupted. One by one, victims shared their stories. A Korean family had spent $30,000 fighting false violations. A black veteran held up medical bills for stress-induced heart issues. A Jewish couple detailed the financial strain of ongoing harassment. Only one board member, Karen herself, voted in favor of her attempted takeover of 401 against, and she stood alone. Even her wine club circle could smell the desperation. As the meeting spiraled into chaos, Karen made one last dramatic statement. Anyone disrupting tomorrow's gala would be prosecuted for trespassing. Gary Chen, our legal counsel, responded with theatrical calm. "Actually, Karen, the gala is a public ANA event, held on shared property. Every dues-paying member has the legal right to attend and record it." Page 15. Section 8 of the bylaws. "You drafted them yourself." Karen stormed out of the meeting like a fuse had been lit under her. But not before I caught a glimpse of something in her eyes, a raw, unfiltered fear. She knew we were planning something. What she didn't know was what. That uncertainty was consuming her from within. That night, our group chat was on fire, camera batteries charged, positions confirmed, witnesses on standby. The local news crew covering the gala had been tipped about the likely showdown. Rodrigo's truck was spotless and stationed nearby. Every piece was in place for the big reveal. Karen had been blindly swinging in the dark for weeks. Tomorrow, the lights were coming on. Then came her last and most vicious blow, a character assassination campaign that could have made Stalin blush. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a message from my brother in New Jersey. "Why is there a blog saying you're under investigation for elder abuse?" An anonymous blog titled Pine Valley Truth had exploded online overnight, complete with manipulated photos of my father looking weak and captions laced with false claims of neglect. There were fabricated statements from so-called concerned neighbors describing our home as dangerous. The worst part? A doctored image showing my dad lying on the floor altered from a real picture of him doing physical therapy. But Karen made a critical mistake. She included detailed information about Dad's medications that only someone who had unlawfully accessed our mail could possibly know. That post, intended to frame me, actually included evidence of federal crimes committed by her. My phone didn't stop ringing. Clients, friends, and family members had seen the lies. Deborah's blood pressure skyrocketed, to the point where her doctor threatened immediate hospitalization. "She's trying to force me into the hospital before tonight," Deborah said through labored breaths. "She knows we won't leave if I'm admitted." By midday, Karen's vendetta crossed into uncharted evil. The doorbell rang. 2 officers stood outside, responding to a welfare check on my father. Behind them, Karen's Mercedes was visible across the street, her silhouette lurking behind the tinted glass like a predator waiting to strike. "We received a report of screaming and possible violence," said the younger officer, one hand resting on his holster. My dad rolled to the door with military precision. "Officers, I'm Anthony Castellano, a retired staff sergeant and Purple Heart recipient. The only thing under attack here is the truth." What happened next was pure poetic justice. The older officer stared at my dad's face, then broke into a wide smile. "Tony Castellano, no way. You saved my uncle in A-71, Jimmy Morrison, 25th Infantry." They embraced like brothers reunited after decades, while Karen watched her light turn into a war hero's homecoming. Officer Morrison took careful notes about the false report, shaking his head. "People wasting police time while real crimes are happening. A broken bar, unbelievable." As they left, he handed me his card. "When you take this person down, call me." False calls like this cost lives. It delayed my partner's response to a real domestic. Then came the twist we never expected. Richard Stanton, Karen's husband, stood at my doorstep, looking like a man who just learned his wife was a monster. "I can't cover for her anymore," he said, handing me a thumb drive. "She's ruined our marriage, our finances, and our name. Everything's on there." The drive was a gold mine. Records of Anna funds Karen siphoned, forged receipts, reports from private investigators spying on neighbors, audio of her scheming fake CPS claims. His voice trembled. "She told me it was just about keeping the neighborhood nice. I didn't know she was this evil." The thumb drive held everything prosecutors dream about. Screenshots of Anna bank statements with suspicious transfers to Karen's personal shopping accounts, emails organizing harassment campaigns. But the most damning, a spreadsheet tracking neighbors by race, religion, and military background, complete with comments like "Mexicans lower property value" and "too many Asians on Oak Street." She had cataloged her hate crimes with the precision of a war criminal. And then came the cherry on top, an audio file of Karen, tipsy at a wine club gathering, bragging about running off the undesirables and making Pine Valley pure again. Dr. Patel called an emergency pre-gala meeting that afternoon. 47 homeowners packed into my garage, the air thick with tension and resolve. "I completed the forensic audit," he announced, displaying spreadsheets that left jaws hanging. "Karen Whitmore Stanton has stolen $247,000 from Anna funds over the past 8 years, but here's the best part: she was careless. Every transaction was documented, traceable, and irrefutable. She used Anna credit cards for personal luxuries, then filed fraudulent expense reports. That's wire fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement, all federal crimes, each carrying mandatory prison time." The room trembled with controlled outrage. The Korean family revealed that Karen had cost them $30,000 in legal battles over bogus violations. A black veteran showed medical bills linked to stress-related heart issues. A Jewish couple presented financial losses caused by her harassment.